best thing, better than you've ever seen. I'm the new best thing, I'm gonna be the king. I bring that ching, ching, ching. Yeah, I'm the new best thing, I'm the new best thing.
Hello, welcome to Hedera Forum. We're happy to have you for this, our 11th episode. And we've got another great guest for you today, another Hedera team member, the Senior Vice President for Business Development, Mr. Jordan Freed. Hello, Jordan. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me, guys. I have watched most of these. I don't know if I've watched all of them yet, and I'm excited to finally be here.
That's great to have you. We're also joined by Brandon with the Monetary Reset, of course, as usual. Hey, Brandon, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me back. Looking forward to it.
All right. So, Jordan, thanks again for spending some time. As everyone is aware, this is a podcast that is produced by the community, for the community. I hope that when people watch it, they feel that this is some of the best information they can find, because we really are involved day to day in the news, keeping up with things surrounding the development of Hedera. And so we're extremely excited to have you, Jordan, to have your perspective, being one of, I consider sort of you, Manson, Lehman, sort of the trifecta, the core three sort of builders of the business, so to speak. So thank you so much for making the time, Jordan.
I appreciate it. I got to tell you, Manson Lehman are the co-founders here. I was just sold at the vision. My history was I bumped into them serendipitously in 2017. It was kind of one of those things where you meet someone and you just know. Did very little due diligence and jumped in at that point. I think you have a feeling. Yeah. I knew they'd make great leaders of this organization. So, I'm happy to help drive our business development, go to market efforts, and happy to be part of the Hedera story.
Yeah, it's same for me. When I first saw Lehman speak, it's sort of like a magnetism. I think we've touched on that before. You just know that this guy's the real deal, and you look at his credentials and what he's done. Same for you. Speaking of which, this is kind of just a little bit of get to know Jordan before we get started in the discussion. But I couldn't help but bring this up in my due diligence for preparing for the podcast. Came across this website. Jordan, this is great. I love that it goes back to early days. And the one thing that I took away from this more than anything is just how young you are and what you've accomplished at a young age. Is this something that you can comment on here? Is there anything that stands out as a highlight?
Besides embarrassment?
Just the Hedera community here. So.
Yeah. I appreciate the kind words. The truth is, entrepreneurship for me was not even a choice. I'm really fortunate. I have a really interesting upbringing, and both of my parents are entrepreneurs. So getting a job was actually never even a viable option for me. I didn't understand the concept that there was this thing like you put a resume together and you applied. My parents never did that. I grew up in a household where, my mom and dad both had started businesses. And I'm one of 10 kids. I have 3 brothers and 6 sisters. So that's just how they put food on the table. For me, and we grew up in a great middle-class lifestyle, but the way I got the extra things I wanted in my life, be it a new pair of shoes or whatever 10-year-olds want, Pokemon cards, I think was my thing back then. I started businesses to be able to ride my bike to 7-Eleven and be able to go afford a pack of Pokemon cards or what have you. So I'm really lucky to have had parents who are entrepreneurs. And then I'm also very lucky to have a father who is very technical. We were one of the first families in the community to have a super fast internet connection. My dad and I used to take over our air hockey table and build big box computers. I kind of just grew up tinkering, not just with the hardware of the computers, but also then software. I started building web pages at a really early age. As you can read on this, I got into affiliate marketing when I was I was definitely much younger than I should have been at that stage. Most of the affiliate networks back then really wanted you to be 18 plus. And I was, a 12-year-old lying about my date of birth to dabble in online marketing. But I figured it all out from there. I taught myself how to, write HTML and PHP and CSS style sheets and put together front ends for web pages. And that turned out to be a really good skill to have. Online marketing is really the crux of a lot of businesses, most businesses on the internet today.
Very cool. Well, we don't want to embarrass you too much, but I don't think there's much to be embarrassed about here. Interesting story. Anyone who's looking for more, check out jordanfried.com for a little background, and this will conclude our segment on Get to Know Jordan.
I should update that website.
All right, let's talk about some more recent stuff. This is just your Twitter feed here. I have to say, first of all, I love your profile pic and the background here, the Wall Street Journal advert. I'm still looking for a hard copy. I don't know if you guys have any of those laying around. I hope you have some for posterity, like in a dry safe somewhere. But,
oh yeah, absolutely. I've got a bunch of those. My wife and I walked all over New York City the day it came out, and I think we just took everyone we could find.
Nice.
So.
Well, you're not supposed to do that. You got to get into the hands of the other people.
I know, we ended up distributing many of them, but I did keep some. I know some of the team has them framed in the various offices that we keep, or in their home offices now.
Nice.
That's great. Yeah.
I may email you. Maybe I can grab one of those and put it in a frame myself someday.
Let me see if I got one for you.
All right, man. Thank you so much. All right, Brandon, you wanted to ask a few questions to Jordan. Why don't you jump in and go with the first question here?
Sure. So pretty much it sounded like in your Reimagine 2020 interview that you did recently, and great job, by the way, it sounded like your job was mainly right now focused on recruitment of new council members. Obviously, that's something we're all really interested in. I guess my question is, how do you see that your role developing over time? Do you think it's going to mainly focus on council members continuing recruitment, or do you think that's going to develop into something else as time goes on?
Yeah, great question. So when we say, I hate the term business development, let me be the first to say that. I really don't like my title. And I don't like titles in general, but I think business development is kind of misleading, because what we really do is we are evangelists for the platform to the earliest adopters of the platform. We want to enable the ecosystem to be really successful in what they do and what they build on this thing. First and foremost, our team spends a lot of time on putting our governing council together. So that's everything from selling the top level vision, that's Manson Lehman's vision for what Hedera should be and is now in the market, getting them comfortable with it from a governance perspective. What does it mean to govern? You guys are going to be running infrastructure on this network. You're literally becoming a member of a limited liability company that has issued a token. You should see some of the reactions we get when we actually have that conversation. And the conversations, I mean, I love this part of the job, because you're working your way up through these organizations. In some cases, you start with middle management, but we very quickly get to, in some cases, the C-level decision makers of some of these tremendous organizations. We've had, CIOs and CTOs of multi-billion-dollar multinationals actually execute the paperwork to join the governing council. So that's really exciting. It's sort of the pinnacle of, I think, any business development person's career, if you will, to get to pitch the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar multinational and kind of, get your time to make your case. So putting those business cases together, these are long processes, guys. I know the community sometimes gets frustrated at the cadence that council's recruited, but that's how our team spends a lot of its time, is putting those business cases together. It's never the same. There's not like one council recruitment deck. In every instance, we are meeting with the companies, we're learning what they care about, and we're tailoring our approach to the problems that they're trying to solve and how they will most benefit from their use of the Hedera platform. So that's what we're doing in the market. We are also, and to your point on how is the role changing, we are spending an increasing amount of our time focused on utilization. So, and I know the community cares about this too. It's not just governing, right? Governing was, I like to call it land and expand. Landing a council member is just the beginning. It's not, you didn't close a deal. That's just the beginning. Great. They're a member. They're our bosses now. They govern. They come to meetings. They're running infrastructure. Awesome. Expanding is now getting buy-in across the organization. These companies have hundreds of thousands of employees. So in some cases, we're meeting with, we're doing lunch and learns, where we're meeting with a large group, 50, 60 managers at these organizations, where we're educating them on Hedera, how they can use it in their various different business groups. And that's all with the end goal of utilization in mind. You know, how can we get transactional throughput from these companies? How can we convince them to use things like the Hedera consensus service to solve proof of action problems, or you know, data integrity problems, or build tokenization use cases? So that's become an increasingly larger amount of how we spend our team's time. Those are, I think, the biggest two. And then the third is ecosystem. So when you look at what we did, it's very challenging. We created something completely new. It's not an ERC20 token, which out of the box is going to be supported in all these different wallets and custody providers. Lehman's invention of the Hashgraph is remarkable. It's a fundamental leap in, you know, computer science. And this token is amazing from a performance, security, stability, governance perspective. I can't say enough good things about it. But the problem with it is you have to get people to adopt it. You have to get people to accept it. So that is, you know, making sure we've got the right on-ramps, card to crypto providers, the right exchanges that are compliant, that have the right geographic coverage, the right wallets to hold it. And that has taken time. Hedera is very risk adverse, as the community knows. So we won't engage with everybody. If people are, you know, blatantly manipulating exchange volume, or they're not doing proper KYC AML, or they're not, you know, complying with OFAC sanctions, things of that nature, we're not going to sign a formal partnership with them. Of course, anyone can integrate HBAR. You don't have to talk to me. You don't have to talk to anyone on my team. You can actually just go to our public docs and you can integrate HBAR. But if you want support from us, you know, we kind of need you to be buttoned up, so to speak. So that's how, those are the three areas of how we spend our time in the role of business development. And I think, again, just the way that evolves is there's only so many wallets, there's only so many exchanges. That was very top heavy. We're doing a lot of that. At a certain point over the next couple of years, there'll be new wallets, but not new mass adopted wallets. Not every day is there someone building a new wallet that has millions of users. So I think the rate at which we are driving those new integrations will slow down in a few years. And, you know, our focus will then turn to just making sure we are that de facto enterprise network. I think we're already becoming that. I have reason to believe that will only continue to increase. So I'm very excited to prove that to the market.
Well, as to the patience of the community, I think, yeah, you know, you're absolutely right. We all want this to move along faster. But that said, I think the community that understands what you guys are trying to accomplish understand that we'd rather you do it right than fast. So there's no problem with that. As far as a quick follow-up, you did mention in that interview as well that you're under several NDA agreements, and we wouldn't dare ask about the details of those use cases. But maybe you could tell us about how many NDAs there are around use cases.
You would not believe how many NDAs we sign as a company. Okay. So we have a lot of NDAs. We have a huge pipeline. I have to shine some light because I get to do all these fun interviews, but my team is incredible. I've got to highlight some of them. Alex Godwin has also been with us from the very beginning. The guy's an absolute rock star and an enterprise whisperer in his own right. And he helps cover, you know, Europe, Middle East, Africa from a region. His council pipeline's fantastic and is on his own. And the amount of, you know, enterprise use cases that him and team are focused on is great. Azim Malik is newer to our team, joined about a year ago, actually. Time really does fly. He joined last September, has made an immediate impact on the organization. Wes Geisenberger, who lives out in the Bay Area. These are guys who come from, Azim as a past at IBM, and Wes had come from Oracle, and Alex has got, you know, PwC in his background. So we've got great talent on our team, and we're able to scale the amount of enterprise relationships that we have thanks to these people. So I feel like we're signing, you know, a huge number of new NDAs every single week. I can only speak to to what I'm signing. In terms of account, I know there's an NDA tracker that's managed by our legal team. Loren is the person on our legal team who manages that. So let me check that dashboard and see, and maybe I can get you an answer. But yes, it's quite a few, and that is a sign of, you know, COVID has not slowed this down at all. I think if anything, it sped it up because our team's not traveling as much. and we get to stay at home. I'm in my guest bedroom at home right now, and it's every hour of every day, back to back to back phone calls. So it's I'm very excited to share with the community, who's in the pipeline by way of converting that pipeline to new public partnerships that we can talk about.
Okay, good, exciting stuff.
Is there any sort of sector or market share that interests you? And I know you can't talk about anything specifically, but is there any sort of direction on something that excites you in terms of a general use case?
So we've been thinking a lot internally about stablecoins. We think that they I won't even say we. I'll share what excites me about them. I think that they're going to become great. They already are. They're great fiat to crypto on-ramps. It's a great entry point for those that are new to the space. It also, from a user perspective, users can be using stablecoins in many cases, without ever actually realizing that they're using cryptocurrency. Stablecoins are meant to be stable. It sort of extracts away the volatility of a crypto itself. I think that stablecoins will become very valuable to the networks that they're built on when architected in certain ways. And I won't get into the weeds on this, but I think that will become a way to build robust payment ecosystems and new infrastructure around these networks. So, stablecoins built on top of Hedera will also need wallets in custody, and those wallet and custody providers will have to integrate HBAR as the gas to power some of these tokens. So we're very excited about the future of those use cases. Many of our prospective council members and current council members are also interested in that. We do have special interest groups now, and there is a tokenization SIG. So tokenization in general, but personally tokenization as it relates to stablecoins is something I spend a lot of my time researching. Even if I have an hour off or on evenings and weekends, I'm always reading about stablecoins and their use and different white papers or proposals for how to architect these things. So I'm very excited about some of those and working on some of that with our council.
And there's very different levels to those stable coins. You have the initial stable coins of like Tether that just exchanges use because they needed something along those lines. And then you have the next level where a more regulatory compliant, like what Circle has done with USDC. And then you have the next level where commercial banks get involved. And that's what we're seeing with FTPOS, right? In Australia, a commercial level, where most of the actual currency resides. And then of course the pinnacle is going to be the central bank digital currency. And I know you have some interest in that as well. So there's different levels to those stable coins that people can get involved with.
That's exactly right. And you're clearly very knowledgeable on the subject. I think where it gets super interesting is when you look at bypassing traditional payment rails, there's a major cost saving to not just the merchants who accept stablecoins. So think about it. When I was running buffered VPN, 3% of our turnover was immediately right off the top going to Visa, MasterCard, PayPal, whatever option. That's one of the reasons we were excited about taking Bitcoin, even despite its volatility, was a way to hedge our dependence on traditional payment rails. On top of that, you have chargebacks. So in certain industries, chargebacks can go as high as 1% or even higher. Mm-hmm. And you've got a lot of fraud. If you're buying $1,000 Samsung TV and you charge that back, the merchant's out $1,000 for that TV, sure, right? So, in terms of cost of goods sold, it drives costs way up. I think stablecoins are going to are going to be very interesting once merchants start waking up to, wow, this solves a lot of problems for us. And you can kind of figure out which of our council members may be interested in that from a use case perspective. So we're really excited just to be on for the ride and help them explore it, and specifically explore doing it on the Hedera network.
If we were going to buy a $1,000 TV, it would be an LG, I think.
Oh, absolutely.
But, all right. On the topic of the CBDC, right here, CBDC.com. Can we talk about that a little bit and just what your interests are around a sovereign currency being digitized?
Yes. So the first thing I'd say is, back to my background, growing up in the household I grew up in, it just was one of the fun things I did with my dad growing up was buy domain names. And I even remember, let's call it borrowing his credit card to buy domain names, and it's just something I do for fun. one of the use cases I've been most excited about, in addition to stablecoins, has been the central bank digital currency use case. I've been fortunate enough, even as a young person in this industry, to get to sit down with some central banks themselves. And all around the world at some of their prior to this pandemic, on site, which is, it's been amazing. Those conversations have been just so interesting. And I have to tell you, there's a growing number of people who work at central banks that are coming to understand the space and who we all are. They know about Hedera Hashgraph. They know about Hashgraph. They've read the white paper. They've looked at it from a technology perspective. So that feels really good to know that, we're being looked at and we're being considered. I saw this domain name. The individual who owned it had no idea what a central bank digital currency was, or that CBDC stood for central bank digital currency. So it was one of those serendipitous opportunities where you make him an offer he can't refuse and you take it off of his hands. The truth is, I'm full-time dedicated to Hedera, and that will be the case for the foreseeable future. I love this. This is how I plan to spend the next several decades of my career, and in growing this network. So whether I'm full-time here at Hedera or I'm doing something outside, it will be for the benefit of HBAR holders, this ecosystem, this community, and this amazing vision that Manson Lehman have. CBDC, whatever I do with it, will be Hedera related. Will benefit. Will directly use the technology. It's not. I'm not yet at the point where I can talk publicly about that. And again, nor am I at the time where I can spend my full-time attention on it. We've got bigger fish to fry. We've got to recruit the council, but that was a passive thing I made. Anything I do passively, I try to disclose to the board, our council members, so that there is no conflict, so that they know what I'm working on. That's important from a disclosure perspective. So I figured, why not just publicly disclose it? It's there. I'm excited to have it. By the way, this is the one domain name that, more than any other domain name I've ever held, I receive a new offer, I think almost every week, maybe every other week, for someone who wants to buy that domain name, and it's not for sale. So, but it's exciting.
I share that hobby with you, Jordan. I also like to purchase and hold on to some domain names, not only in the .com world, but in the .hh world. Are you an owner of any of the .hh domains?
I believe I am. I have to check which ones I own there, but I remember reserving a bunch, and I remember sending payment somehow for a bunch. So I have to let me go check what I have there. But I'm a big fan of the. Originally, it was, what was it? It was the Ethereum name service or naming service, and I love that we've got that feature set here as well. So very excited about that.
Very cool. Let's dig a little deeper down the Twitter hole here. Brandon, you saw an interesting tweet regarding Tesla somewhere, I think. You want to touch on that?
That's, I guess, it's a more broad question. We have seen the central bank digital currency tweets. We saw you tweet about Tesla. Hedera community members have learned to read between the lines. We know that you're covered under a lot of the NDAs, like you were talking, and you can't really talk about things until the council members or enterprises using Hedera are ready to launch. Should we be paying attention to any of these tweets, including the Tesla tweet that Jesse mentioned?
So I have to. I'd love to see the tweet. I forget what I tweeted about Tesla specifically. Should you be reading between the lines? By my own admission, I'm frustrated at what I can and can't say here, right? I love you guys. I want to be able to tell you everything. I want to go get a beer with you and go talk about it. I can't do that. It's funny. I can't even talk to my family about it in some cases, right? Some of my family holds HBAR, so I can't even say stuff to them. So you don't have a lot of people you can talk to, right? It's basically Mance, Lehman, some of my colleagues, and I occasionally take to Twitter to vent. You may have seen some frustrated threads about the ecosystem. Some of the things I am frustrated about, and you guys are probably going to avoid asking me about this, but I'll just come forward and say it. Guys, I love Hedera. I love HBAR. I love what we've built here. I think the tribalism is not productive, right? I think that this community, the crypto community, all of us, anyone listening to this, you are part of a very niche subset of the internet, that is not yet known to the rest of the World Wide Web, right? My grandma, my mom, my aunts and uncles and cousins, none of them even know what we do for a living. None of them know that this conversation is happening or wouldn't even know how to interpret it. So I don't see us competing against other crypto projects or even Bitcoin as much as I see us needing to solve a fundamental awareness problem about, one, cryptocurrency as an asset class, and why I believe everyone on planet Earth needs access to that asset class. So access is another problem. Awareness is the first problem. So one, bringing awareness to it. Two, making it easy for them to access. People are working on that. Sometimes we need to extract away the complexities of cryptocurrencies, public-private key pairs, passphrases, things of that nature. But I think we need to bring this to as many people as possible. That gets me very excited. And honestly, Munib from Blockstack is doing the same thing. So is Vitalik. So are the Bitcoiners. And to a large extent, a lot of people just look at all of us as being in the same industry, being in the same asset class. I wish we could be more collaborative. I wish we could all work together for the greater good. Yes, a few platforms will win. I have no doubt that Hedera Hashgraph is going to be one of those winners. I love that this community is eager and sometimes impatient with the progress that we make, but I'm completely reassured just looking at our pipeline and knowing what we're executing on. No one is bringing enterprises to this space like Hedera Hashgraph is, period. There are no other networks and no other projects out there that is bringing the type of companies that we're bringing, nor will they at the rate at which we're doing it. Yes, is it slow? Absolutely. I'm not gonna tell you that enterprise sales cycles are fun cycles to wait out. It will absolutely be worth it over the long run. It is absolutely the right go-to-market. It is hard. That is the defensible moat that this network has that other networks don't. It is really well governed, and not by me and Mance and Lehman or you guys, no offense, but it's governed by some of the biggest, most trusted organizations who, frankly, a lot of the internet knows they don't want to trust them. So don't trust them, trust the collective. Trust the amalgamation of companies that have come together to, govern, and they're geographically diverse. They're not colluding. In many cases, we have productive, heated conversations. So that's great. Anyway, I apologize about the vent, but if you see me talking about other crypto projects, and I think you know which one I'm referring to, yes, I like Bitcoin. Yes, I think that Bitcoin is productive. I see it as a store value. It solves a completely different problem for me that what, Hedera Hashgraph and HBAR can do. HBAR is, in my opinion, the only utility token in the market. Okay. That is what HBAR is. Bitcoin is not a utility token. Bitcoin is not going to be used for peer-to-peer payments. Bitcoin is not going to be used for much more than just being a store of value. And I think that's fine. Yeah. And, if people want to store their value, go park it over there. But if you actually want something useful, HBAR. Yeah.
And that's one thing, we compare ourselves to other platforms all the time, but that's because we kind of have to do that because, those are the benchmarks that are out there. It's not, we love Bitcoin, we wouldn't be here without it. And we appreciate it all that it's done, but sometimes you have to do some comparisons, right?
Yep. We can knock it, but just remember, we're knocking it to people who are learning about our ecosystem for the first time, and they come. Remember the whole J.K. Rowling thing? That tribalism scared her away very quickly, right? We're scaring people like Dave Portnoy from Barstool Sports away really quickly, right? So I think the tribalism is one of the things I like the least about working in this space, because I want us. I think success for us is, if you remember in the 80s, or not even the 80s, 70s, 60s, 70s, only businessmen traveled. There's like this great story. Simon Sinek talks about it in his book, Wait, But Why? But when Southwest Airlines came and built their airline, they said, we're not the airline for the business travelers. There's already airlines for that. Guys put on their suits and ties and go travel for business all the time. We're the everyman airline. We're the airline for the 85% of people that are not traveling today. What I'm much more excited about, instead of convincing, the existing crypto community why Hedera and HBAR is so great, I'm much more excited about accessing the 95% of people that have no access to this asset class and no exposure to it at all. I believe every portfolio, not just crypto portfolio, should have HBAR in it. And I'm excited to bring that to them much more than I'm excited about fighting with a bunch of people about why I think, the next latest DeFi project is just not that interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more. I've caught my fair share of flack for saying that I want Hedera to transcend the crypto market, and it's not because anything against the crypto markets. It's just because I think it can be one of the first that really can transcend.
Yep, that's how I love to think about it. So
big
apologies
space.
if I'm not getting tribal and picking fights with others, but you know, let them do what they're doing. I think we're focused on tending to our own garden over here.
Sure. It's a huge pie, right? I mean, you mentioned
huge pie.
You mentioned
Huge pie.
Manib earlier. If I had one wish, and I've put this out there a few times, would be to see Manib and Lehman and maybe you and maybe Ari Paul and a few people that I think would, I don't know, I'd just love to see that panel. I'd love to see Lehman and Manib, what they would just discuss naturally, you know.
Yeah, and in many cases, I love what they're doing, and we're all borrowing, right? We're all like getting inspiration from each other. There's just such an amazing opportunity, the things we could accomplish if we all came together. I do fundamentally believe there will only be a few winners, especially in the category of application networks. Hedera is a general purpose application network. We want things to be built on top of us, much more than, you know, I think of HBAR as a store value. Sure, it has the principles of what a store value token like Bitcoin has. There's a fixed supply. There won't be, there'll never be more than 50 billion of it. That's exciting, but I'm much more excited about winning that utilization game. And I think the way you're going to win it is if it's good enough to get mission critical enterprise grade applications to be deployed on it, it's going to be good enough for the startups, and the rest sort of falls into place. So that's kind of why we started with the hardest thing first, which is getting those enterprises on board.
Good stuff.
Here's
All right,
sorry, Brandon, go ahead.
No. I was just gonna, because you had mentioned, you know, the NDAs and not being able to talk to your family about stuff. So Hedera seems to front run what they anticipate to be future regulation to comply with them, you know, in the present. In the equity world, there are strict regulations that govern insider trading,
Yep.
and even more stringent limitations for executives and things like that.
Yep.
Can you explain what the guidance, limitations, and methods that Hedera uses to follow these regulations that may not apply now, but seem to be applicable and may be enforced later in the future?
So Hedera, you guys know this better than most. We're extremely risk adverse, and we take a very conservative approach to all things, you know, legal, regulatory posture in the market. And I think to the large extent, we've been rewarded for that, right? I mean, projects like Telegram got stopped around the same time that we came out. And I believe our proactive approach, our strategy, just to restate it with the regulators, has always been, let's have them never be surprised by something that we do. Let's tell them what we're going to do well before we're going to do it. And we gave them, we actually told them the date and time that we were going to launch the network well before that. So to answer your question directly, we have adopted what I feel is the right approach in terms of employee and insiders trading. We have a Hedera insider trading policy. Natalie Furman, our general counsel, can go into way more depth on it. I've read it. Tried not to fall asleep reading it because it is a lot of legalese. I've read it. We all signed documents that we have read it and that we understand. We understand what it says. There is in it a concept of blackout periods where there is information that you know, if when there is information known by us or an announcement is about to be made, that insiders and employees are prohibited from engaging in transactions within a certain period of time around those announcements. So that is something that exists. And on top of that, what I would say is, it's very difficult for us to prevent leaks. I'll give you a practical example. Prior to one of our council announcements, the council member decided it would be a good idea to tell the entire company in a company-wide email that the partnership was coming. Now, we were all restricted from trading, but every single employee, thousands, you know, tens of thousands of employees had gotten an email, a newsletter, an internal newsletter that announced that this partnership was going to happen.
Sure.
If any of them were crypto traders, I'm sure they acted on that news, and there's speculation around it. We can't stop that from happening, but we can control what our insiders and what our employees do.
No.
So we do have I believe we have the proper controls and the right process in place. Again, I don't know if Natalie's been here on the show yet. I don't think she has. She would be great to have.
Mm-hmm.
She's fascinating. I think she gets the title of, when I first met Manson Lehman, it was clear we wanted I had met them as an investor. I was an angel investor in Swirls. I was fortunate enough to be in that seed round and then, help seed Hedera. When it was clear that we wanted to build an organization and that we were going to do this public network, we knew we needed our first, the first person we needed to recruit was Natalie. So I got to meet her for the first time for coffee in New York City and knew right away that she was the person to come build this thing with us. So she'd be a great guest, and she can speak much more to just how seriously we take issues like insider trading and things like that. On top of that, the other thing I'd say is all of our employee compensation is structured. There's a cash and a coin component, and it's structured just like a stock option package would be. We even call it RCUs, restricted compensation units or restricted coin units. And those are locked up over, we're still on a 4-year standard vest. So those are released over a period of time. There's a cliff in there somewhere. So I believe we have the right mechanics of it. No one at Hedera is sitting there day trading. No one would have the time to do that. Between our back-to-back phone calls, you'd have to be the world's best multitasker to even try to do something like that.
Yeah. Well, good to know. Thank you, Jordan.
Of course.
All right, looking at another tweet here. I just happened to scroll down and looking for that Tesla tweet, but this is just from July 16th, and I just saw something recently. I know the total number of accounts on the mainnet is approaching 45,000, so that happened pretty quickly. And the total transaction volume is over 250 million now.
That's crazy, isn't it?
5 weeks from this tweet, so that's 25% of the total volume in the last 5-6 weeks.
I take comfort in the fact that at a certain point, we're just going to be so busy. We already are. We're so focused on executing that I expect, and I don't pretend to fully understand how this crypto market functions, right? There is that tribalism that's there, and I'm the first to admit I don't understand it. And people love the projects that they love, but at a certain point, I feel very confident, and I rest assured knowing that people are going to have to take notice. This will be too big to ignore at a certain point, and I don't know what the impetus for that would be. I don't know if it's the next council announcement. I don't know if it's the next enterprise use case deployment. Man, I'm I continue to be, and I always have been very bullish on what the future of this network looks like, just knowing that I think our team is best placed to continue to execute on our vision. We don't talk about things that we are going to do. We talk about as much as we, I think, lay out a vision for a plan, and then continuously prove and build trust with the community that we're going to execute on that plan. We don't do everything right. We make a lot of mistakes. We're learning. I think everyone's learning. This whole industry it's in its infancy. How do you value these networks? What goes into these valuation frameworks? What goes into token valuations? How enterprises think about what platforms they're going to build on. But I have a lot of confidence in our ability to continue to execute and deliver on the plan that we set out. So that excites me. That gets me out of bed every morning very excited.
One of the things that recently excited me is I see use cases that were really the flavor of the month, but it was back in 2016 or whether it's tokenization or micropayments, and Hedera seems to come along and pick some of those up, dust them off, and make them shiny again with FPOS, and I know DLA Piper's looking at tokenization. Sure. Right now we're looking at DeFi, and I think it's an interesting concept. I would like it if it wasn't just used for cryptocurrency speculation, and maybe it was funding people with lower credit for their small businesses or small businesses in Africa or things like that. But I think future down the line, we'll see Hedera pick up that use case once it's fallen out of favor, and we'll probably do something with that as well.
So there are a lot of great people here. You just stopped on HBAR. I think it's a cool thing to want to lock up a bunch of HBAR and bring it to Ethereum. I think it's even cooler to want to bring some of those Ethereum DeFi apps. Many of them are open source. It wouldn't be hard for, a bunch of developers to repurpose those for this ecosystem. I'd really like much more of that. And I don't think decentralized finance is going to replace the entire financial system as much as everyone says it will. I think that the existing financial system will see features of DeFi that they like and will come to the market to adopt it, as in the same sense that they see features of existing crypto custody providers, and you have companies like Fidelity Digital Asset Services come into custody cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin. I think that you'll have some of the main incumbents, including some of our council members, want to enter the space and build some of these things of value. So I'm also excited for the community to build some of those things. I'm always on the lookout for teams. So if you guys know anyone in the community who wants to build really great DeFi things, and specifically some things I think that would be really cool is things that drive incentives to deposit HBAR and earn yield on that. I do think that is, yes, it's not solving world hunger, to your point, Brandon. Yeah, it's not, we're not banking the unbanked necessarily with that. But I do think there are cool things in the interim that will end up leading to more built out businesses. Look at BlockFi. BlockFi is one of the fastest growing unicorns. They just did a Series C. I think it was a Series C. Anthony Pompliano is in on it. Their business is growing at a huge rate. I do think some of that lending and some of those financial services does have a place in building up a healthy ecosystem around a platform like ours. So it'd be cool to have some of that come here. I'd love to meet others who may be listening to this that'd like to help build some of that.
I agree. Jordan, we know that you only have a few minutes left. I did want to bring up, there's a use case. We were talking about use cases, and
sure.
There's a new use case that's going to be found on one of our Telegram channels, HBAR Chat, and it's going to be HBAR Chat Bot is going to be the name of this application. But essentially what it is we already have like an ecosystem of reputation points where you give a little plus symbol to content that you think is good, whether that's a tweet or a video or just a good comment. And we're actually going to start implementing micropayments for those reputation
That's awesome.
points.
I love that.
It's really neat. And I know we've had some things, shout out to Nick with hashhash.info, and that he highlighted micropayments with his bug smashing game. But these payments might be a little bit more significant. So I think people are gonna get excited about it. And we're gonna have possibly sponsors. So there's gonna be, if you're a sponsor and you're the highest bid at the time, you'll be able to put your website. So if you wanted to highlight jordanfreed.com or CBDC.com or something along those lines, you could sponsor it. So I think that's interesting. But I was just thinking about what this brings, these new little use cases. And there's also other things that are being done by the community that actually use Hedera. Teleconsensus is another one that's being used on that Telegram channel. But with this HBAR chatbot, you get to reward people for quality content. Each reputation has 3 micropayments associated with it, and it's also going to use Hashgraph consensus service. And I know we want as many transactions as possible, so that's 4 transactions on each one. It's a competitive game, so that's always fun. It highlights the low fees of Hedera, and it's integrated in a platform we use every day, and we do it for free, Telegram. So 7 positives in one sentence there is pretty good.
I love it. Let me know how I can be supportive of this. I can't wait to see it get implemented. After we launched the network, Telegram admittedly became a lot for me to maintain. So I just kind of uninstalled it, and I'm like, I got to deliver. Like we said, we're going to do a lot of things. I got to deliver on all these things. So I'm not on it nearly as much as I want. I think you guys have seen me poke my head in there a few times recently, and I want to be there more. So I'm going to try to carve out some time where I can engage directly. The reason I'd like to do that is I get a lot of good ideas and inspiration from this community. And the community has a lot of good ideas like this one that I want to, do what I can to help exist. Or come to market. So if there are things I can do to help, take this particular use case to market with you guys, let me know. I'd love to support it. And then I'd love to meet others that you may know about that has this. But again, I think what I love about working in the decentralized network space is, and maybe this is a good point to end on, you guys let me know. I don't know if you guys have read Bitcoin Billionaires, the story of the Winklevoss twins and sort of what they have done. And again, I think when you can take its inspiration from this, Hedera, while it started as Manson Lehman's vision, Hedera is a globally accessible, public, decentralized network. And at this point, it's less about what I want the network to be and what Lehman and Mance want the network to be. and more about what you guys want the network to be. And that's one of the most humbling things in the world. I never would have expected the network to be used in the ways that it is being used today. Seriously, no BS. When we started this thing, I never expected to see these use cases. I thought it was going to be other things in 2017, really. So I am so humbled at just the amazing things that people are building at hackathons or experimenting with. Some of these are going to turn into the next generation of cool businesses and cool ideas. And that just gets me so excited. So I think that when you look at a network and how do you value it, it's what is the number of people in that ecosystem that are trying to leave their mark. In the case of the Winklevoss twins, I think the story is they learned about it in Ibiza at a party. Sounds like a frat boy story. They learned about it in Ibiza at a party, and then they were so inspired by it, they decided to build Gemini, an amazing business, an amazing piece of infrastructure. It is within all of your control, those listening to this, the Hedera community's control, to build the missing infrastructure, to build the things that will deliver HBAR and the Hedera network to the place in the market that Bitcoin is today. And it's less about what I do here, what Manson Lehman does here, and more about how many people like Cameron and Tyler in 2011, 2012 found HBAR and said, I am so compelled and so inspired by this that I'm going to create a YouTube channel and I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to create a podcast and come talk about it. I'm going to help give people their first HBAR experience and see their eyes light up. I'm going to build wallets like Christian Holman just built a new wallet. Amazing.
Right?
Just something. It's so exciting, and that's what I love, because I can't even keep track of the use cases, the partnerships, and even the NDAs now. But what's more exciting is you don't even need an NDA with us. You just go build. It's open source now. The SDKs are there. It's yours, and you can make it what you want to make it. And the governing council is there just to make sure that the underlying consensus, the protocol that all of us are building on, is there for as a public utility, just like the water service or the electricity, or a payment network like a Visa or MasterCard. So that excites me the most, and I want to communicate that to you. It's time to empower the community, and any way I can do that, I'm just a servant to what this community wants to build and do.
Amen to that. Good stuff, Jordan.
I've got one more thing here. Let me just give a shout out
Sure.
to Pablo for along these same lines for the wrapped HBAR. I hope people check that out. I hope people check out the naming service.
Yes.
Get your HH domains. I mean, I've got a bunch of my name, just simple stuff.
Let's pull up Christian Holman's wallet real quick. Is it,
hold on.
I don't know if you have it. It's
Ivy, right?
Ivy. Yeah, exactly. Ivy.
Let's see here.
I don't know if you have
I
a
might be able
tab.
to do that because I'm locked on to my full
Well,
suite.
shout out to that. I think it's Ivy. It's Ivy something.
Ivy.world.
Ivy.world. I'll tweet it out again. I had tweeted it previously, but it's just so cool.
We'll give him his own show. It's no problem.
Yeah, we'll bring him on. There's two other things, though. Two other people that I think deserve a shout out. And we're going to have Humankind. They were one of the winners for the hackathon. Very
Awesome.
altruistic, early concept project that I love. I've been thinking about this for years, hoping to work with them in some capacity, but we're going to hopefully have them on soon. And also this news that just came out from Deepak Chopra.
We didn't even get to this, but this is
supporting mental health and all kinds of good stuff. So these types of stories for me really resonate. And I just thought we should mention a few of those here on our way out.
This is a super important use case. Guys, I know this is not the last time we'll be chatting. Maybe we'll do a follow-up to this. There's always much more to say, especially with both of you. So last thing I'd say is thank you for the work you're doing. Thanks for shedding light, increasing the awareness around this community. That's what we need. We need more of it. So if I can help at all, let me know. And again, thanks for having me.
Thanks, Jordan.
Appreciate your time, man. Have a good week.
Cheers. Talk to you guys soon.
See you, everybody.